What if the guide you're following is not bad, but is teaching you a version of Call of Dragons that doesn't exist anymore? And honestly, this is one of those things that sound funny until it happened to you. Because when you are new in the game, what you do? You go to YouTube, you go to Discord, you search for example, season 1 tips, you see something that happened back in the days. The Gathering Heroes was able to provide a experience for the deputy. This is just one of the examples. Call of Dragons changed so much from the first thing. But yeah, you go on YouTube, you go on the Discord, you search for season 1 tips, and boom, you search for the best starting faction, best early heroes, best alliance tech, best events to save for, best way to prepare for your account, and you feel smart because you're doing some research. You're not just clicking random things. You're not wasting resources. You're trying to play properly. But then you enter in the game and something feels off. The event doesn't look like the event don't look like the one that you see in the pictures. And boy, oh boy, something I want to mention here is I start over in Call of Dragons before like 2-3 weeks. I just built an account. I am working over my beginner guide in Call of Dragons, and I really keep those things updated. I'm not going to show you beginner guide with my end game account. I mean, but anyway, so many things change. So many things change. The progression feels different. The land system are not exactly what the old guides explained. The rewards are different. The map is different. The timing is different. And suddenly you realize something very uncomfortable. Maybe the guide was not wrong when they was made it. Maybe the game moved on, and that's why this is one of the main things that I say to the people. Try to ask, for example, a content creator. Try to ask maybe in the Discord, or at least try to look over a guide over something that is, for example, for this year. It's not something before 3 years, because it may not be relevant anymore. On top of that, sometimes the first guides that are produced are not very good one, because me as content creator, I'm going to share with you one secret right now. When a new update come, majority of the, if not all, content creators are trying to guess, including me, what is going to be this hero, how this hero is going to perform, and majority of the cases there is no data to back up those things, those claims. For example, we see some sneak peeks or whatever about some new heroes, and we try to build something, because the hype is there. But yeah, if you see a guide that is like for a hero that is out before 1 year, and the guide is before like 6 months, maybe it's going to be more relevant, because at least you have like 6 months testing data over this hero. And by testing data, I don't mean like 2 people sitting and shooting one sitting legion and the other legion is shooting, or your legion gets shooted by other legion. This one-on-one is never also a good way of testing, in my opinion. Then and this is where I think a lot of new Call of Dragon players get cooked without even realizing it. They're not losing because they're lazy. They're not losing because they refuse to learn. They're losing because they learn from old information. And boy, oh boy, old information. So yeah, because they're just losing because they learn from old information. That's all. And I think games like this, old information can be worse than the no information, because no information make you careful. Old information make you confident. And confidence with outdated information is dangerous. And think about that. Think about that for a second. I mean, imagine you're not having any kind of information at the end of the day. You're not having any kind of information, and a new hero appear, or you're starting and you receive new hero. You're going to be more careful with this hero because you don't have information. From this to have an information, feel confident and make big mistakes like this just because the information is outdated. I started thinking about this because I saw players talking about season 1 again, and somebody asked a very normal question. They was basically trying to learn the game properly, okay? They were updating, they wanted updated information, they wanted to lead an alliance, they wanted to know where to research, and the answer was basically be careful, because season 1 has changed so many times that a lot of guides are not fully accurate anymore. And this is true because I make like, I don't know, I make like 3 beginner guides, and those 3 beginner guides have like new quests inside. For example, when I started playing, it was hard to get a legendary hero. Right now, when there was a moment where you walk in the game and you have every day some hero that you can receive, and you can receive a lot of legendary heroes and epic heroes like this. There is just so many. There is this thing when you move with Warrior on the map, and you know this things that was in ads back in the day, but when I started, those things was not there. Right now, I'm not so sure are they there. I mean, dude, just so many things, so many things, and that's stuck, and that stuck with me, because for experienced players, this is obvious. We have seen the system change, we have seen old events replace it, we have seen progression change it, we have seen starting structure change, we have seen alliance mechanics change. But for a new player, they don't know what's changed. They don't know something changed. They just see a guide with a confident title and they assume it works. And that is the first trap. The first trap is not, and that's the first trap. The first trap is not about advice. The first trap is advice that used to be good, because bad advice is easy to reject. But old good advice, especially for, let's say, heroes, pets, etc., that one feels safe. That one has comments saying great guides, or that's helped me a lot, thank you for this video, now I know what to do. That one has thousands, and also have thousands of views. That one sound also convincing. But one question is, helped who? Helped players in which version of season 1? Helped players before which update? Helped players before the new progression? And I can show you one thing that's changed. For example, I think I'm going to make a Nico video somewhere in the future, but I can give you, for example, this hero, Nico. He was having engineering. Right now, he's not having engineering. He was having some, one spell change of this hero. And when you open a Nico guide, the guide is basically built around the skills of the old Nico. But right now, the new Nico don't have engineering. So the new Nico is not that valuable as engineering hero because it's not having engineering, it's having PvP talent tree. So, these small things, small shifts, especially if you want to play marksman, is crazy. Helped players before the new events, because now the real question is not, is this guide good? The real question is this guide still alive? And I don't think the most players ask that. I know I didn't ask that as well. I used to watch something and think, okay, this creator know what they're talking about. I trust it. But over time, especially in games like Call of Dragons, you start realizing that trust is not enough. Now, for Call of Dragons, I cannot say because myself are making content for this game. So I have been there, Gandalf 3,000 years ago when the global launch of this game arrived, and and yeah, till this day. So, but I play other games also where I looking for information just to be more efficient because I know what the mistakes can do to your account. It's just wild. The information need a date. The system need context. The advice needs season because advice without context can become a trap. For example, imagine somebody tell you rush this event, but that event is not the same anymore. Or somebody tells you prioritize this alliance tech, but the alliance tech tree has changed. Or something say this starting road is best, but the map structure changed. Or somebody says save for this timing, but the event timing moved. Now the players is not just following advices, they're following a ghost. They're playing today account with yesterday rules. And that sound dramatic. And that sounds dramatic, but this is exactly how resource wasting is happening. Now, all waste come from not all waste come from being stupid. A lot of waste comes from being one update behind. And this is a part I think people underestimate. In strategy games, being one update behind is not just a small mistake. It changes decision, it change your opening, it change a lot of things of your account. Your heroes, which hero is now valid, but you already invest in this hero, but right now this hero has some change on him and all these things. It changed what you save, it changed what you spent, it changed your alliance preparation for. I mean, it changed what it changed what you think matter. And if you are leading players, it get even worse because now your mistake is not only for your account. Now you're teaching other players the wrong version of the game, and that's scary because leading an alliance in season 1 already looks easy from the outside. And something I want to point out, especially for leading the alliance in season 1, is um, that the majority of the people are going to ask questions, people just going to start playing the game, they're going to see there is a chat in the game, so maybe they're going to not doing some crazy research over something, they're just going to ask somebody inside this alliance. And if the person inside has foul out advice, it's just going to spread this misinformation, it's going to hurt the new player account. The new player is going to share this information with somebody else pretending to knowing more and all these things, which is absolutely crazy. Now everybody think I played one strategy game, I understand this, and yes, a lot of system feels familiar. The events feels familiar, the rallies feels familiar, the alliance structure feels familiar, the resources management feels familiar, but Cow Dragons has one extra point. It keeps changing the early game. And when the early game keeps changing, experience from other games can't trick you. Because you recognize the shape of the system, but you miss the details that actually matter. And those details are where season are won or lose. That was the second thing that hit me. Most players do not lose because they understand nothing. They lose because they understand 80% and miss 20% that change. And that 20% is usually the dangerous part. The event order, the progression speed, the alliance requirements, the behemoth timing, the rewards, the tech value, the starting zone, dragon timing. I mean, all these things, and even for behemoths, boy. Right now, we're not having even, this is the giant, but as you can see, he can have some stacks if you don't, conquer these behemoths. Back in the days, there was no stacks, so you're preparing for something very hard when in the same time it's not that hard. And that's why old guides are so dangerous. They give you 80%, so you feel prepared, but the missing 20% is the part that creates panic. You're sitting like, wait, why is this event here? Wait, why is this reward different? Wait, why are we behind? Why did nobody tell me this? Or something like this. And by the time you ask those questions, the server is already moving. Other alliances are already organized, other players already know where to go, other leaders already prepared their Discord, other projects already trained their people. And boy, oh boy, if you want to be a serious alliance in Call of Dragons, you definitely need Discord. It may sound like an overkill for some players, but believe me, you basically need a Discord for good coordination, and I think the majority of the people are going to understand what to do on the battlefield, but it's more for like creating the community. And you're still trying to figure out why the guides doesn't not match the screen. That's a terrible feeling. And honestly, this is why I think season 1 is the hardest than most people admit. Not mechanically hard, not because you need some crazy WoW account, but because the early game punished confusion. If your alliance doesn't know when to show up, you lose tempo. If your players do not understand events, you lose rewards. If your leadership does not understand the system, people lose confidence. If people lose confidence, they leave. And once people start leaving in season 1, now you are not just behind, you are rebuilding where others are growing. And this is the point where a lot of alliances collapse, not because they're weak, because they were late to understand the real game. Then I start thinking about something else. Why do projects usually beat random new alliances? Most people say power or spending or wealth leadership. And yes, sometimes that's true. But I think the bigger reason is preparation. Projects are not just starting with new players, they are starting with system, they already have Discord channel, they already have guides, they already have event explanation, already have voice chat habits, have shadows, have explorations, have people who know what changed, so when the server open, they're not discovering the game, they're executing the plan. That's difference is massive. That's why I always say to the people, yo, guys, go and try to find a project. Now, I don't know why the projects decide to make some crazy timings, like I get called out for a project. I joined the Discord, was already created, so it's not like from today the person start gathering people. Everything was ready, and there was a history with the people riding there, and the project is going to start after 2 months. The project is going to start January next year. It's going to start at August, October. Brother, this is like 4 or 5 months later. You already have like 1 2 months that you already set it up. I mean, this huge time. Now, for majority of the time, I understand, because maybe for people to save some money, so when everything starts, they have already some pile of money ready to go or something like this. But yeah, just crazy. Now, yeah, just the difference is massive, because a normal new alliance is asking, what do we do? A project alliance is asking, did everyone do what we planned? That's not the same game. And this is where outdated guides become even more powerful, because if you're an independent alliance leader and your information is outdated, you're already behind organizing groups before the first real fight even happens. Not because your player are bad, not because your account is doomed. Preparation is built on unstable ground. And I know some players will say, okay, but Burgas, most information is still useful. And yes, that is true. A lot of old information still has value. Basic resource management still matter. Showing up still matter. Not wasting speed ups still matter. Building stronger heroes still matter. Joining active alliance still matter. But that's exactly why this is tricky. The guide is not 100% wrong. It's maybe 70% right, or maybe 80%, maybe 90% right, but the wrong 10% can still hurt you. And timing is everything in season 1. If you save for a wrong event, that hurt. If you prepare for the wrong objectives, that hurt. Alliance take priorities outdated, it hurts. Players expect a old progression path. It hurt. Leadership misses the actual season structure. Well, that hurt also. Small outdated details create big early mistakes. And early mistakes in season 1 feels bigger because players are still deciding who to trust. This is something I think alliance leaders need to understand. In season 1, people are not only judging your strength, they're judging whether you know what is happening. And yeah, as a alliance leader, you just have to be updated on what is happening, or at least go and spend some time, checking, checking what is going on. This event, you can go open the event calendar, see if, for example, the Hates of Power is coming with the city team, or at least have an idea that this event is going to appear so people can go and maybe try train more troops, like this 10k plus troops training. I mean, all these things matter, and as a lance leader you have to know it, and also your rank force. If you give wrong instructions once, maybe it's fine. If you give wrong instruction once, yeah, it's maybe fine. Twice people start questioning, and if more alliance looks more organized, suddenly people start moving. And then you get the classic season 1 disaster. The alliance was fine, one behemoth went badly, the alliance dropped it, then the strongest players joined the project, then the leadership got frustrated, then the alliance merged, and everybody say we just didn't not have enough power. But was power really the problem? Or it was the preparation, or it was the outdated information, or it was the players realizing too late that the people leading them were leading at the same time? Was the people who was leading them was also learning in the same time? This is why I think the biggest season 1 mistake is not choosing the wrong hero, is choosing the wrong source of information, because everything else follow from that. Your hero discussion follow from information, your event discussion follow from information, your alliance priorities follow from information, your expectations follow from information. And if those source is old, the mistakes spread everywhere. That's the hidden danger. Old information does not stay in one place, it infects every decision connected to it. And this is where I want to be very careful as a new player. Do not ask what is the best guide. Ask what was this guide made for. What's the server range? What server range was this for? Is this before before or after the season 1 change? Does this still match what I see in the game? Are players from the newer servers confirming this? That one question alone can save you so much pain. Does this still match what I see in the game? Because if the guides say one thing and on your screen you see another thing, do not force the guides to be right. The game is telling you something. And I think players ignore that because they trust confident explanation too much. I have done this too. You watch somebody explaining something with confidence and you think, okay, I must be misunderstanding. But sometimes you're not misunderstanding. Sometimes the video is just old. Some of the advice expired. Some of the system changed. And the creator may not even be wrong. They were right for their time, but you're playing now, and that's what matters. Then there is another layer. Old guides can also create the wrong emotional expectation. This is underrated. A players watch an old season 1 guide and expect a certain experience. They expect certain walls, certain rewards, certain pacing, events, progression. Then the game feels differently. And instead of adapting, they think something is wrong. They think they're behind. They think their alliance is bad. They think the game is unfair. They think they missed something. But maybe the real issue is they build expectation from a version of the game that no longer exists. That can hurt retention badly, because confusion feels like a failure, and new players quit when they feel like the game is already out of control. So if you're leading an alliance, this matter even more. You cannot just give people link and say, watch this guide. You need to know if this guide is still correct. You need to tell them what changed. You need to separate evergreen advices from outdated advices, because there is a big difference between watch this whole guide and watch this part for the basic idea. Just to get a basic idea what is going on and what you have to do in this guide at the end of the day. So yeah, but sometimes season one is not brutal. Sometimes the old guides was. So yeah, the next time you watch a Call of Dragon season one guide, don't only ask if it sounds smart, ask if it's still alive, because the most dangerous guide is not the one that was always wrong. It was the one that used to be right. And I'm curious, have you ever found a guide in Call of Dragons and later realized the system had changed? Or are you a new server right now and seeing things that old videos do not explain anymore? Tell me in the comments, because I honestly think this is one of the biggest hidden problems for new players right now.